Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another For Honor video. So, we got some more news regarding the Year of the Harbinger, and this is official stuff from Ubisoft, so no need to speculate or anything like that. This is from Ubisoft. They released the news themselves. I don't have to edit it in any way. And what's great about this is, well, it's good and bad because I think the reason they're releasing this much information this early on is because of the Amazon leaks. I think that probably forced their hand a bit with this, but they've released a lot of information at once, like the entire roadmap for the year. Whether that's a smart thing or not, I mean, I personally think it's a bad idea to release the information that you're getting four heroes throughout the entire year, and the new Wulin one is at the end of the year. I think that's a pretty dumb way of marketing it, but I mean, hey, Amazon forced their hand, basically, is all I can say to that. But the most important thing, we finally got the name of the new knight hero, the one I was going to spend this video talking about and breaking down, and we also got the silhouettes of all the characters. So, yeah, I finally get to talk a lot about that. And, I was originally going to make this all about the Vortiger? Vortiger? Vortigern, I think, is the actual way it's pronounced, but it's also called Vortiger for some reason. I don't know. Vortiger or Vortiger. I won't attempt to try and pronounce. I'll just Vortiger. Sounds better. Slightly French. I don't know why. But yeah, so I was going to make this video all about him, but because we've got some information on the other characters now, I thought I'd give a quick little rundown. So if we look here, we see the Year of the Harbinger. The roadmap that's coming out for it is 31st of January. We get the Vortiger, and that's going to be 2 weeks early. Before that, if you get the pass, you get access to play him early. So we'll probably get some gameplay and news about him very, very, very soon. Because considering he's only a month away from being able to be played, they have to release some gameplay footage of him pretty damn soon. Then we've got the new samurai hero. So it is confirmed the axe is going to the samurai. There was a bit of confusion whether it was going to be the Wulin or the samurai that gets the axe, but no, the Wulin gets the Zhang, or someone said it wasn't a Zhang, it was a Tao. Oh, I'll find the name of it eventually and mention it. But yeah, some people said it wasn't a Zhang because if you look very closely at the blade, you can see on the far right of it the full is actually on the far right, which means it's single-edged, which would stop it from being a Zhang. But not entirely sure about that. I'll look into it. I'll find more about it another time. But for now, so it goes, Samurai gets the axe, understandable. We all knew the Viking was going to get the hammer, that's fairly straightforward. And the Wulin gets the new sword, which is either a Zhang or a... I don't fucking know. Can't remember the name of the other one, but I'll probably type it in later, in post. But anyway, yeah. So unfortunately the Wulin is coming out at the end of the year, November, which really bad if you really excited for the new Wulin hero, which a lot of people were. A lot of people saw the weapons and were just like, right, I know that's what I want. And it turns out people who wanted the Wulin weapon get it at the end of the year, which is really shit. Viking is also third in the year, which is not great. Mid-year, well, it's not really mid-year, but it's not great coming out late, but fuck it. I'm happy. My favourite character is coming out first, the Vortiger, or the one I was most looking forward to. And if we look at the silhouettes of all the characters, we can actually sort of work out a fair bit about them. So, well, at least I can safely say I can work out a bit about the knight, the Vortiger, the Wulin hero, and probably the Viking. The Viking one's easy. It's just going to be a bearded man with a helmet and a fur coat, using a warhammer. It's not hard to make a cool looking Viking. It's not hard to imagine what he'd look like anyway either. The Wulin, however, I think this is going to be... Okay, so think of the Mantis Chancellor from Marco Polo, right? It'll be that kind of look. But an interesting thing that someone pointed out on Reddit is there's also an armoured version of that. There's an armoured Wulin, and I think the Year of the Harbinger, I think the Harbinger as a class, to me, it seems like it's going to be an exclusive hybrid between Vanguards and Heavies. I mean, I know we've got the Lawbringer, but that's not really a hybrid between Conqueror and Warden. If you think of it logically, right, so Vortiger, Vortiger, Sword and Shield, Warden and Conqueror. Combine those two, that's what you get. And if you look at, I'll talk about him more in depth later, but if you look at the images of what he could look like, what a Vortiger has looked like in movies and media and things like that, it sort of looks like a Conqueror and a Warden's looks have just been spliced together. And it's the same with the weapons, sword, shield, you know. Warden's got a sword, Conqueror's got a shield, stick them both together, that's what you get. You can also imagine the same thing for the Viking hero. You know, if you get a warlord and a raider, you know, axe and a shield, and you know, you stick them together, and the kind of character you get would use a warhammer. I'm pretty sure. You know, a warlord and a raider stick together would definitely make a hammer using character. For the samurai, you've got an axe, a battle axe, which you could definitely see being spliced between a shigoki and a kensei. You know, that makes a lot of sense. They're both big vanguardy characters, you know, it makes sense that they use an axe. And for the Wulin, I can imagine Zhang Jun, because he's not really a heavy, he's quite light as heavies go, funnily enough. And him combined with Tiandi would definitely make a sword-wielding character, you know, Zhang or whatever the name of the sword actually is. And yeah, so someone pointed out that, you know, the Wulin character, the silhouette, it looks like the Mantis Chancellor, but I think it's going to have a bit more armor on it. And what I'm thinking, because this is Ubisoft and they're going to pick out classic imagery from history, I think it's maybe like a leader for the terracotta army sort of look. So if you think of a terracotta soldier, you know, the terracotta army that was dug up and there are all the thousands of clay soldiers or whatever, I'm pretty sure this guy will, if you think of a terracotta soldier, you think this guy would lead them. You think this guy would lead the terracotta army, basically. I think that's the sort of look they're going for with him. Can't tell you what the samurai would look like, but the Vortiger, I can definitely, you know, you can definitely sort of imagine that he's going to look like, I don't know, something like this, or just the combination between Warden and Conqueror is the idea I keep coming up with. Now, this video was, you know, still going to be all about the Vortiger, so yeah, I thought I'd get into that first. So let's get into probably the most important part, or the first thing that my mind went to when I heard, well, we found out his name is Vortiger, or Vortigen, if you Google it, is what the hell is a Vortiger? And the best thing I can find of a definition or anything like that is a Vortigen, or Vortiger, was a 5th century English ruler, and that's not the name of the ruler, that's actually the title of a ruler, and the title can mean either Great Chief, Supreme Lord, or Warlord. So you can sort of see where this is going. He's got a sword and a shield, and he's an English warlord, so you can tell the sort of theme that's happening here. King Vortigern is also a character, that one of the main antagonists for King Arthur, something like that, you know, just a bit of trivia. And if you look at his silhouette, you know, it's got an interesting look to it already. So he's got big shoulders. So if you look at any villain in history, or any villain in any film, the old ones at least, they've always got really big shoulders. So I imagine him looking quite evil just from that alone, because he's got massive, like, shoulder pads. I can't tell what kind of helmet he's wearing. I'm not even sure if he's wearing a helmet. It might actually be just a mail coif, which is a chainmail, like, hoodie, basically, is the way to describe it. And if we look here, this is if you type in Vortigen and you look at images, this is what people are speculating he's going to look like. And it makes sense, you know, he's got the mail coif, and I am really hoping they do this and they add a crown, like just a proper crown as one of his ornaments. That would just, it'd be so good. Because if you think of all the other factions, right, every faction has the class that's supposed to be considered that faction's leader, in quotation marks. So for the Vikings, you've got the warlord. He's supposed to be, you know, maybe not, but he's considered the leader in the Viking community, right? Out of all the classes, he's the most likely to be the leader. For the samurai, it's the kensei. They're considered to be the leader. Even in the story, this you know, it keeps reinforcing that the warlord is the leader, the kensei is the leader. Even though the story for the samurai is about the Orochi, the kensei still ends up being the leader. the Wulin, they've got Zhang Zheng. He's considered the leader because he's the general of the army. But the knights don't really have that. I mean, they've got the Lawbringer, he's not really considered a leader. He's just a lawman, I guess. Warden, not. I don't think they're supposed to be considered a leader. I mean, at least not to me. I don't think Warden is a leader. Conqueror, conscripted criminal, badass as he is, not a leader. Assassin wouldn't be a leader. Gladiator, hell no. Centurion, he's just a soldier. So I think this class, the Vortiger that's coming out, is designed to be, or his backstory and all that is going to be, he is the leader of the knights, right? He is considered to be a leader of knights, a leader of the means for the knights, and all that sort of thing. So I can imagine a crown working perfectly for him. So my sort of image I have in my head is kind of armored. He's an armored character, right? But not in like heavy plate armor like a Lawbringer. He's got mixture of plates and chainmail like a warden and a conqueror. He's probably got a lot of chainmail. I'm imagining he's more chainmail than any of the other classes, is what I'm thinking. His main helmet thing is probably going to be open face, or maybe closed face mask, but with chainmail around the outside. That would be cool. And of course the big shoulder pads as well to go with the sword and shield. And yeah, I like the idea of that design. A mostly male. I mean, I say male as in chainmail character. All these characters are male and female, which means I think Ubisoft is just giving up on the, gender exclusive characters, which I think is probably a good idea. And I think this is going to be good. It's going to be a leader character for the knights. If we look at the actual history of him, because this might give us some depth of what we're looking at here. The Vortiger was a leader in the 5th century, an English ruler, and his main accomplishment or thing like that was he invited the Saxons over to England, which, Saxons are basically what all English people are descended from, and he invited them over and joined them together to, defeat the Picts and the Scots. So, if we look at a map of England, we've got the, say, Shaman over here, we've got the Highlanders up here, and the Vortiger and all the knights would be here. And their entire thing would have been fighting them back, murdering them off the land, and just keeping them in their own country. Which, that's a good bit of history there. A lot of people, like a lot of historical accounts, consider this Vortigen character to be a villain because he invited all the Saxons in. A lot of people consider him to be a pagan, which I don't know if there's a lot of scrupulation here because they were all his enemies, so how accurate any of this is doesn't make sense. But what is known and what's a fairly common consensus is this guy invited the Saxons over and ruled England by uniting the Saxons, and that's that basically. So he was an English warlord, or English Supreme Lord is another title he's got. And yeah, so it would make sense he'd end up being the king or Supreme Lord or Warlord for the Knights. And I like that idea. So I originally was thinking he was going to be a a minion that had risen up through the ranks and become, a captain or, just a buffed up minion. But I think this is probably, I don't know, I think this may be cooler. He's the king of the Knights, or leader of the Knights, which I think is, another cool way of going about making the character. So apart from that, of course, we've got his sword and shield, which is obviously going to be his iconic weapon, and that is, I mean, you can't really get more iconic for a knight than a sword and shield. And not even that, it's a kite shield as well, which is probably the most iconic, one of the most iconic shields in history, definitely the most iconic in English history. And the real advantage, so, I've spoken about what the character could be, what he could look like, and all the things like that. So let's talk about his weapons and how he can actually play. The possibility he has in, his sort of gameplay. And now I've already touched on this before in my last video, but I think I can probably go more in depth on that sort of style. So if we look at Warlord, right? Warlord is probably going to be the closest thing to Vortiger there is, because he's the only other sword and shield using character. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be, I hope they're not similar in any way. I hope the Vortigen has completely a unique way of playing that's completely different from Warlord. And so don't give him a headbutt. If he has a headbutt, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. Or a shield bash. I don't think he should have a shield bash, because a kite shield isn't really it's not as an offensive weapon as a heater shield is. I mean, you kite shields are a lot thinner and just a lot bigger than heater shields, so you can't really use them to bash as much. But I mean, obviously, it's still a shield. Now, the things you can do with well, first of all, the history of the kite shield as it goes is basically Vikings came over, they had their round shields. The English before, while they were dealing with the Vikings, they used the heater shields, and eventually the general consensus was, right, these shields are shit, they don't protect our legs, what can we do to fix that? Here comes the kite shield. And that's basically how it was developed. The Romans had a similar thing. What is the name of the Roman shield? Is it the scutum? Hell, let me just quickly Google this. Name. Yeah, scutum. And the Roman shield, the scutum is the big sort of curved rectangular shield. And that was an amazing design because, of course, it could really easily make a shield wall. It protected the user from head to toe, really good. And the kite shield basically does exactly that. Easy to make a shield wall, which was it was the main tactic of medieval Europeans, a shield wall. Very, very effective, very hard to deal with. And it would also protect your soldiers from head to foot. So, bonus there as well. A lot of the ways the shields were used, one very important part of the kite shield is the fact that it can also have a load of different ways of holding it, like a lot of different grips. So if you think of the heater shield, and you think of the way Conqueror holds it, the way it's held is it's strapped to your arm. It can either be horizontal or diagonally strapped to your arm, and that holds it. You hold it close to your chest, and it's easy to lift the shield because it's strapped to your arm. Doesn't weigh that much. It's easy to move around. It's a part of you basically, and it's very solid. It makes you a very solid object. If you look at the Viking shield, the round shield, it's actually got a center grip. And it's a vertical center grip at that. Well, it doesn't really apply to a round shield because you can just turn it to the side and it becomes a horizontal grip. But it's got a center grip is the idea, and that means that you can hold it very far away from you, which means that if anything, is dangerous, you can keep it further away from you by holding out your shield. But the problem with that is it's very unstable, so people could knock your shield to the side and get around it and all that sort of thing. So, effective, but it's got its pros and its cons, because the shield that's strapped to you, of course, you don't have much you can't really push the shield away from you very far because, of course, it's already strapped to your arm. But the advantage of that is it's strapped to you, making it very solidly put, it's very solidly placed, basically. And the advantage of the kite shield is it could have a center grip as well as a strap grip. So you could choose between what kind of grip you'd have. Now, the advantage of a center grip, which is the reason you see a pommel on a lot of shields through history, is because that's where the grip went. That's where you'd grip the shield. And one of the main ways that the Romans fought is they'd fight with a center grip, and they'd fight with it horizontally, so facing, horizontally. So you'd grab it with your hand wrapped over the top of the shield, and you'd sort of be lifting it up the same way you'd lift up like a carrier bag or something, in that sort of grip. And what they do is they hold the shield against their thigh, and they'd crouch down, and that would mean that the shield would basically be at their eye level as well as on their thigh. And all they need to do is, if someone went for the foot, they drop down a little bit. They'd drop down hardly any distance at all, and their feet would be completely protected. If someone went for the top, they just lift it up a little bit. And the advantage of holding a shield in that way is it's easy to move up and down, which is, the main places you're going to be attacked. And apart from that, you can also lift it to the side and, punch with it or push with it. And if you look at, a Roman shield or just a kite shield, and you just imagine how much material is between the handle and the end of the shield, you can put a lot of force and a lot of pressure into a punch using that much material. And you can imagine, getting hit in the face or something like that. It's gonna take you, it's gonna stun you, it's gonna knock you back. It's probably gonna hurt quite a lot. So if I'm gonna imagine this character with any unblockables, he could either have it, of course, strapped to his arm like Conqueror, or he could have the center grip like Warlord. And if he has it like Warlord, then that means he's got the option of... You see how the shield is actually serrated? I'm thinking, while this may just be an artistic choice, it might actually be key in the design for the shield, in using it as a weapon, which might mean we get a character that actually punches with the shield, which is, quite common. It's a very effective way of breaking someone's defense, is by using this massive, blunt, big object with a lot of material behind it and putting all your force into it. It's definitely going to knock someone's guard out, and I think that would be a good unblockable. So instead of bashing with the shield like Conqueror, where you jump into them, instead of headbutting them as Warlord, you actually take your shield and you just punch someone in the face with it. I think that's a way cooler idea for an unblockable with a shield, and I think if he's going to have any unblockables, that would be the best one to have. That kind of... He just picks up his shield, he's holding his shield, he just puts it to the side and just punches you in the face with that, the angle going down with all the serrated bits on, and just, wallops you. And I think that would be a cool mechanic for an unblockable. Speaking of the similarities of Warlord again, Warlord, I've touched on this in my last video as well, Warlord has those blocking lights, is the best way to put it. And I'll put some footage in the background. So what that is whenever Warlord does a light attack, for a few frames, he's blocking from the same side as light is coming from, basically. So if you were to light at the exact same time as Warlord is lighting you from the same side, you will hit his block and he will hit you. And, I don't need to explain this, you're seeing it in the background, basically. And I think the Vortiger... Yeah, no, I have said that right. I had to check myself again. I think if the Vortiger's going to have a mechanic, like a main mechanic, because if you think Conqueror's main mechanic, Shield Bash. Warlord's main mechanic, probably Sprinting Charge. Let's think of... Gladiator's main mechanic, either Toe Stab or his own attack. Raider's main mechanic, dodging grabs. The things that define a character, basically. And I'm thinking what it could be for the Vortiger is constant defense while attacking. So whichever side he's lighting from, or just attacking from, maybe a light or a heavy as well, whatever side he's attacking from, he also blocks from that side constantly. So whichever side he's blocking and attacking from, it doesn't matter, he will always be blocking from that side. And I think that could really add to the mind game of the character, because of course what that means is if someone's going to throw a heavy at you, you can either go for or if someone throws a light at you, you can either go for the parry with the heavy, or you can go for a light, which would just hit them out of it. And that means that if they go for a heavy and you see you see the side the attack's coming from, you go for the light thinking it's a light, and what will happen is they'll hit your block as you hit them. If it's a heavy, you'll hit them before they even get a chance to cancel their attack. If it's a light, you've got the option of lighting from the same side, which would beat them out because they just hit your guard, or going for a heavy, which would parry them. And it just means that your opponent, they think, ooh, is he going to go for a parry on me when I throw this light, or is he going to throw a light himself, which means I can try and bait it out and parry it myself. It really increases the depth of the character, and I think that would be one... If he's going to have one major trait, I think the coolest thing he could have would be he's always defending, and where even if he's attacking, he's still always defending from the side he's attacking from, which is basically shield combat 101. That the reason you have the shield is to attack without exposing yourself while attacking, because you can attack in so many different ways with a shield where you're still completely safe. More or less. There are ways around it, but the idea of using a shield and attacking with, say, so much... there are so many manuals and methods of fighting with, say, a falchion or a messer, which were exclusively used with shields, basically, which involve the use of attacking while blocking in a way that keeps you entirely safe while you're attacking from that certain angle. I think that would be a cool mechanic for the character. Another cool one, because he's a shielded character and entirely based on defense, I'm thinking maybe he should have an all block, or maybe not a true all block, but something similar that can actually block unblockable attacks. Or if you think of Shigoki's hyper armor, maybe, and how if you're a Conqueror or a Warden or anything like that, and if you bash the Shigoki while he's got his armor, he just shrugs it off. His armor disappears, and he shrugs it off. I'm thinking, it doesn't actually hit him, or it hits him, but he doesn't feel the effect, so he can still knock you out of it. So he's not stunned in any way, basically, is the point I'm trying to make. And what would be a cool mechanic for the Vortigen is if he has an all block, or not an all block, just a kind of super block that gives him the same effect if he's hit with an unblockable. Because I mean, the most defensive character in the entire game is Nobushi, and I don't know why that's a thing. I mean, she's got a polearm, for Christ's sake. You don't think, oh, that's a defensive weapon. She's just, all she does is she steps back. That's, in real life, that's not very defensive. A shield is much more useful as a defensive tool than stepping back, if you think about it. So what I think is he should be the truly defensive character in the game, and he should have all the best defensive options there could be. Counter to that, though, he should probably be balanced out by having terrible offense, or at least not ridiculously good offense. Like, Conqueror is supposed to be a defensive character, but probably has the third best or around that level of offense in the entire game. I don't think he should be. I think the Vortigen should have the best defense in the game, but maybe average offense, basically. And I think that'd be a cool mechanic for him, having the ability to deal with unblockables in a way that would make sense with a shield. Because if you hold if you really hunker down with a shield, and a kite shield nonetheless, because you can dig that into the ground, you can hold that up against you, because if it's strapped to you as well, or even if you're holding it, if you kneel down with it and you punt it into the ground, even if someone rams into you full pelt with a shoulder charge, or just smacks it as hard as they can with an axe or something, you won't move. You're a solid object. That was the entire principle behind a shield wall, is you all interlocking together makes an impenetrable wall, and people charging up against it, they just bash off it. They just, they hit into it as hard as they can, but they can't budge you, is the idea of, having a shield and a shield wall. And I think he can be a one-man shield wall, is something that could fit the persona of the character. And not only that, talking about his feats and whatnot, I'm thinking as he's probably going to be designed to be the leader of the Knights, he's probably going to have a lot of team-based skills. So if you think of Zhang Zheng, he's got the ability to heal his teammates, buff up his teammates' damage, zone out enemies to protect his teammates, things like that. I think the Vortigen should have abilities exactly like that. He should have the ability to heal up his teammates, buff their damage. Maybe something unique to him would be he could buff up the minions in a certain way, or hell, even summon a swarm of minions to come and just be around him, just so he can make an easy escape, or something like that. Maybe, his fourth feat could be he just summons a shitload of minions wherever he is, which could do some really game-changing stuff. It would be a very cool mechanic. Probably broken until Ubisoft worked out some kinks, but it would be a very cool mechanic, because if he's, out of stamina, or he's at low health, or anything like that, pops his fourth feat, summons a crowd of minions. You know how minions spawn? They just come out of nowhere, basically, when they spawn in game, and they walk to the objective. They spawn in behind you, walk in front of you, or walk on you, and you just walk out the back, and you're completely safe, because you've got this wall of minions that the enemy doesn't get any points or anything for killing, just blocking you and keeping you safe. And you can throw the enemies into the minions. They'll do some chip damage and things like that. It's just, there's a lot of cool stuff that can happen with this character. So we've gone over the way he can attack, the ways he should be able to defend and things like that. What he'll be wearing, hopefully a crown. That's the main thing I'm hoping for. So his sword he's using, it's a very simple, it just looks like an arming sword. I mean, obviously you can only see a little bit of the blade and the hilt and handle, but I'm pretty sure it's just a simple knight's arming sword, which, it's nothing special. I mean, you can do a lot with a sword. There are a lot of options, obviously, with a sword. I don't think he'll do it, but honestly, one option is to just grab it by the blade and smack someone with the hilt. That's how you dealt with armor back in the day, but it's a sword. It's simple. But simple things usually have very interesting executions. Like if we look at, say, Raider or Lawbringer or even Warden. He's got a sword, but he still does some of the most flashy executions in the game. Which just goes to show it doesn't matter what you're using, as long as you're imaginative with it, it can do great things. And that's entirely what I'm hoping with this character. He's got a sword and board. You consider that, yeah, that's pretty boring. That's when you think of a knight, you think, oh, he's got a sword and a shield. That's it. But there's so much you can do with something simple. You know, it's like if you look at any protagonist in any, let's say, anime or something like that, if he's got a really simple ability, like, oh, I've got super strength, or, you know, something along those lines, usually the way they win is they find a creative use for it. Like, My Hero Academia, you know, it's all about having All Might's power and just finding creative uses for it, and it ends up being, you know, an amazing ability. It's the same thing with the shield. It's a simple tool, you know, sword and shield, very simple, but I think they can find some amazing things to do with it, and I'm really hoping that's how the character turns out. Simple stuff, but does incredibly amazing stuff with it, is the idea. And yeah, I think that's basically all I can say on the Vortiger. I mean, I could tell you about the history of the Kite shield and the history of the arming sword, but if you want to know about the specific weapons he's using, I'd recommend going to, you know, people talking exclusively about those. That's how I got all my information on the equipment used by knights. So yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative to any of you. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are now that we know the name and we know the kind of ways he'll play. I just want to know what people think of this character in general, what he could become, what he could use, the sort of role he'll play, and also with the Harbinger as well as a class. You know, I still put my money on a hybrid between a Vanguard and a Heavy exclusively, you know, between all the factions, and yeah, just let me know. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Like